Hey, bro. How's it going?
Hello.
Can you hear me?
I can now.
Nice.
Hell,
How's it going?
I'm tired and happy. How you doing?
Um, got a sore throat. Yeah. And excited and nervous.
Yeah.
Mm. Um, yeah.
Thanks for spreading the word on the um, childcare thing. I went to look for my response to you and realized that I didn't see it in the thread. Did you get it with when I said basically like no, I don't have criteria for people, and yes, I would love for you to circulate that?
I did see that.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
great.
hmm
Much
I
love.
think you did say you had criteria as far as either they're a mom or they've done babysitting.
It's just that they have any childcare experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm confident enough about being able to track something down or make something work that I'm I'm assuming that I'm gonna come.
Cool. Yeah, I think if it works for you, we were talking about housing. Karsten, you've been to Karsten's. Have you been to his place? Hi, Ruby.
Not since he moved.
Oh,
No,
okay.
I've only in SAC.
He's got a little office add-on
Oh, cool.
thing.
Like
And
an
we thought,
ADU kind of thing,
huh?
like an accessory dwelling unit, or just like a
Yeah, kind of,
yeah.
but it's just enough big enough for like an office, like one little room. So maybe that would work as far as like then you have a space with the baby, and if it's crying or something, it's not waking everyone up.
Yeah, it's
Um,
nice. And
yeah,
then I'm w with nearish to other people and can be on a similar transport schedule with folks.
yeah. Uh, come in, but I'm in a meeting. I'm in a meeting. Is it quick?
Geek, something happened with outlet starting to buzz and
Uh-huh.
pop out.
Hi,
Okay.
Ruby. Hi, Christina.
Which outlet?
Where is
In
sink? I think.
in the bathroom?
Yeah.
You seem like you're
Okay, I'll
in
look at it.
transit at this time. What do you do on Wednesday nights?
Oh, I teach at UC Davis and I teach at the gym.
Okay.
So it's a little bit hard to it's hard to get a space where you can talk
Right.
and like not disturb other people, or it's
Yeah, I
so
got
loud that you're disturbed, so I'm in my car.
it. Right.
Hmm.
That makes
Uh,
sense.
Yeah.
how's it going, Ruby?
I'm okay. I'm on day 10 in a row of working out and I'm so tired.
Mm.
Gotcha. All right. Yeah,
So
that's a lot.
I'm just going to take a weighted vest walk tonight. I'm not hitting the gym today.
Gotcha. Awesome. All right, well, we're gonna jump in. Joe may or may not join. He said like these times he's gonna try to make, but he's not sure if he'll make everyone. Um, although, wait, I am gonna message him personally just to make sure he saw the message.
Yeah, I'm really grateful for that reminder message because I just completely spaced and I've just been sitting in my kitchen doing other stuff. And I was like, oh God, did I miss the meeting? Oh, it's coming. Okay, good.
Mm-hmm.
I
Uh,
like the schedule. It feels really straightforward to me.
mhm.
Um, I have no notes other than like digging into what we're doing in each of these sessions looks like fun, but the like schedule looks great to me.
Great. Let me show everyone else just in case. Well, who's looked at it already? Christina, you a little bit. Ruby, have you looked at it at all?
I glanced over the schedule that was listed on the website, but let me refresh here and see
Little
if I
different. Here, let me
also
just
looked at
share.
this.
I'll share my screen. This is a
It's the
little bit
same as
more
the Google Doc,
detail.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a
just
Google.
a little more detail.
Okay.
for the teacher
Okay.
training schedule, right? So I'll give a brief overview and then we'll dive deep into the one that we think would be most valuable. Um, this is Early Bird Geek Out. Basically, just I want to have something where if people don't show up on time, like they're not way lost. Um, so I'm thinking live Q&A with the dance one. I'm doing like dance videos and kind of the history of Fusion. But yeah, it doesn't have to be live Q&A. That's just the thing that I thought would be most enticing to get people there. And then this is just kind of an overview of what I feel it takes to become an in-demand dance instructor or a successful dance instructor, right? Where I'm breaking a little bit down of like, obviously, good dance technique, good teaching technique, and good business practices. Um, and so I'll outline that and dive into it, a little of each. Um, and then this is kind of the meat of the concept of this one is like, how do we teach universal technique? Right. And the first half of it is around like the language we use and how that language can impact things. And the second part is around actually like the technique we teach and how we like transform it. Although this one does involves some changing of what we teach as well. Like Christine and I just taught a similar class as this. And there was a lot of like more than just language in it, but I think of these as different. And when we talk about them in a little bit, maybe you guys can help me flesh that out. Um, this one is actually just one of many possible things that we could do here. I'm not stuck on this one. I feel like I'd like to actually leave the class description either blank or something like the perfect class, like in the other one, where basically now that I've had 4 hours with everyone, like what's the most important thing to do here rather than being forced into a class. Um, so actually, I think I'm gonna change that unless anybody's like, no, we got to keep this. But um,
Hey, I have
Are you thinking of changing it to?
I call it the perfect class, and it's basically it allows me to choose what to teach. Right? Like it's like after 4 hours of working with you guys, now I know what's most important, and I'm gonna teach that. That's the
yeah.
class description. And that leaves us a lot of leeway to go, ooh, we really need to go back and do more of this, or
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so my question is if you're gonna make that block be a on the fly based on what's happening, I don't see a break in between to have a little like
Mm,
prep session of like,
fair
okay, we
point.
just integrated this. Where do we go?
Yeah, okay. Um, yeah, I can find a way to fit that in. Um, let me make a note of that. Break to plan for perfect class. Um, okay. And then this last little bit is basically like giving them next steps as far as like what they could do working with me further, whether that's online or one-on-one or things like that. So presenting those options and giving them a chance to ask questions.
Question for you, Andrew.
Yeah.
Will in this 5 hour workshop, will people be practicing teaching the way that you've done in your other teacher trainings?
I imagine yes, but I'm not clear what you mean by like that opens there's a lot of different ways that I have people practice teaching. So um
Like, will they be on the spot? Will they be presenting a concept to the rest of the class for feedback on the
yes.
fly? Okay.
Yes. In in these two sections, we'll build in some of that, right?
Cool.
Like it uh how to say, at least I'm pretty sure we're going to build that in, and then possibly here would be like a perfect spot for it to dive deeper into that. Um, yeah, that's actually, if you notice, this is one option, and if we scroll down to the other like potential things we could do during that perfect class time frame, we have where is it? KVA is one, which I think we've all talked about before, right? Like being able to teach them at the same time. Um, the struggle solving lab, that's kind of like the rapid fire stuff that we've done where people present a problem and everybody goes in to try to solve it, right? And then the live teaching mastery lab, that's the thing that Ted has done where like, you teach and Ted pauses you. Um, and like before Ted was in this weekend, I was planning to do that myself, but I'm also open to if Ted wants to either co-do that or something like I'm open to that. And also, I thought a really cool idea, Ted. I think I mentioned this, but I don't know if we talked about it much, is for you to actually do this to me throughout the workshop
Yeah.
so that people experience that way, especially if we do
And
this live
normalize
at
it.
the end, they get like an experience and they're not nervous of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, great
Love
Yeah,
that.
cool.
about it.
And
Uh,
I'm open to doing that with you or solo.
cool. Okay. And then how to structure a class, how to teach all levels all the time. Those are two topics that people were like wanting help with. Um, so any of those could be added in to that final training or somewhere else. I don't know. Like, I mean, definitely probably the final training makes the most sense. Um, so with that said, like, where do you guys want to dive deeper? Where do you think the best help would be? My gut says these two classes are the place to start for this week. And I can share like what Christina and I did, what worked, what didn't work, and how we might translate that because we were teaching it to students and now we want to translate that to teachers.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, I think you probably have a better sense of what needs to be fleshed out based on what's in your brain. I have a lot of questions about what this content's going to be, but instead of hammering you with questions, I'm just waiting for like the context to flow out before I ask pointed questions. So
sure. Yeah, yeah. Okay. That sound good to you, Ted? We dive
Yeah.
into these two. Christina? Yeah. Okay. So, um, let me share what happened this weekend. Um, so you can get a feel for like, what we did and what worked, what didn't work. Because some of it, like, it definitely didn't go the way I planned. I was like, oh, wow. All right. Like, I tried to do both those concepts in a 1 hour class, and really we ended up only working on the top one. Um, and part of that was like when we started class, I'm like, okay, what techniques do people feel they can't use with everyone? They can only use like if someone knows the technique. And like the first three examples were all like dance moves, right? Like not technique at all. It was like, oh, this aerial or this monkey walks or something like, it's like,
Camel walks.
huh?
Camel walks.
Can't
Monkey walks.
Yeah, there's monkey walks too. Uh
Okay.
yeah. I'm sure you'd recognize them like if you saw. I didn't know that name for it either. It's basically the thing where you do a kick and then you put your foot out in front of the other person and
Oh,
another
yeah,
kick
yeah,
and
yeah.
they put their foot out
You
in
can
front.
totally lead that.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, so I was like, okay, they're thinking of tech or they're thinking of moves, not technique, right? Like So I was like, which is valuable, and that is something that we might want to train deeper in the teacher training, but not in this. Like that's way too complex for this. Um, so that was the first like little bit of a snafu. And then like we had been talking so long, I was like, okay, we got to get them moving. Oh, here, let me share my screen again and show you what our game plan was. Our game plan was basically like we give an example and we show how we solve it, right? Like counterbalance or AABA, like, and then we have the group give an example and we still solve it as the teachers. And then we and the group, like, we come up with some examples together and the group solves it. And then we break out into small groups to like have everybody solve their own problems. That was the original plan. Totally got scrapped, like, and that might have been part of the problem is we jumped straight to this one because I was like, gosh, we need them to start working. Like nobody, we've talking too much. So we jumped to that and let them pick their own, like, off the whiteboard, here's all the techniques we discussed, you pick what you want to work on. And it was fine, but it ended up being more like we didn't really rework technique to make it work with everyone. We talked about like problems they have and how to solve those problems, like, which is leans much more into like the language they were using, the like strategy of like they're making it wrong, okay, how do we not make it wrong? um Yeah, it just it ended up very much like not taking a concept like counterbalance and then breaking it down and going, ooh, how do we like look at all the different avenues of counterbalance so we really understand counterbalance to the degree that when someone uses it in any move at any point, we can match it, right? Like that's like the reaction ready. That's the part two that I thought we were going to work on. And we really worked on like um, what's an example? Christina, do you remember an example of one of the things they, other than monkey paws or monkey walks?
Um, well, I mean, one of the things they worked on for a while was like noodle arms or spaghetti arms and how to get
Mm-hmm.
your partner not to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think part of the issue was that I don't think we set up the language well to get what we were looking for.
Yeah.
I think we just I'm trying to decide how to explain it. I think when we were talking about what the class was going to be about, we talked about it like we were looking to make everything universal. But I think the thing we failed to communicate was I think we failed to communicate clearly that things that you think are wrong
Mm-hmm.
don't have to be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And how can we make them right?
Right. Yeah.
And I
So
think
instead of
we
trying to
didn't
change the
communicate.
noodle,
What'd you say? Sorry.
yeah. So instead, like, because immediately they were like, oh, noodle arms, how do I change the person so they don't have noodle arms? As opposed to like, how do I dance with someone that does have noodle arms? Right. Like,
Right.
assuming I don't have control over the other person, right? How do I work with what they're already doing? Which is, yeah, that was definitely one of the things that I noticed. There were
But I
some,
think I think that major issue set
hmm
it up so the entire class was not what we were planning.
hmm
Like I think that was the main issue.
yeah,
And I think my thought on it in terms of how to improve it for next time
hmm
is to crowdsource what are things that people do in dance that are wrong,
hmm
and then like how can we make the wrong thing neutral and how can we make the wrong thing positive? I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, and that is true. Like that really matches, I feel like, in my mind, this first intention of subjective to inclusive. It doesn't match the breaking the mold, like transforming fixed foundations into fluid, or yeah, like okay, but like questions so far?
Yes. Um, so if you're teaching a genre specific dance like tango
Yeah,
or like Lindy Hop, there are there are like biomechanics and like connection techniques that are really tied into the aesthetic and timing of that dance.
yeah.
And like one of the reasons we don't love noodle arms is because it fucks up timing. It makes it really hard
Hmm.
to get your partner to rock step on beat, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so is the goal here to figure out principles that would apply whether you're teaching a genre specific dance, or is it a way to dance fusion in such a way that's accepting of everybody's weird quirks and lack of formalized technique?
I think the answer is yes and yes,
Okay.
to both.
Okay.
Like, but say the first one again.
Does it address teaching a genre specific dance and the technique that is associated with that aesthetic and that timing for that dance?
Mm. Um, what I'm looking to do is for someone to understand like the maybe an example is just the easiest way to look at it, right? Like um counterbalance is an easy one. Like where like in Lindy Hop, right? We either have like outward counterbalance, right, where we're going away from each other, or no counterbalance. And then like in depending on the style, like that might happen at different moments in
Mm-hmm.
the dance, right? It might not even be like some people have it the whole dance. Some people just have it like on the 3 and 4, right? Like, right. And so with this is part two of this class. Part two is looking at, okay, how do we understand counterbalance so that we really like understand all the facets of it, and can use it in whatever way our partner uses it in the dance to the degree that if someone were even to use inward counterbalance, which is not a part of Lindy Hop at all at this point, right? Like, well, maybe in a sugar push, but certainly not in a swing out. You don't see people doing inward counterbalance, right? But like to that degree that we understand it so well that we can do a whole swing out with inward counterbalance, right? Like, so we can do any move like with any type of counterbalance at any moment, right? And like to break that down, let me share like this is where we start geeking out and going, okay, like what is everything to learn about counterbalance? And I think I closed that tab. Counterbalance.
Right.
Like,
This is coming back to I learned Lindy Hop counterbalance in this way, but my partner doesn't give me enough counterbalance out in the wild. And so, how do I adapt my technique to be able to dance with them?
yeah, like, do I have the ability to adjust and be able to go, oh, like, I use inward counterbalance instead of outward at this moment because that's what made sense for my partner.
Okay,
Yeah.
right. So I'm just rephrasing what you've said, right? But I'm just like integrating it. This is a way of teaching dance such that like instead of just having one tool counterbalance on the 3 and the 4, I have access to an understanding of counterbalance such that I can adapt to anybody else's random level of counterbalance.
Exactly.
Ooh.
Yeah, such a deep understanding, right? And so this is how we broke down counterbalance, right? We went, okay, well, like there's the position that we're in, closed or open or one hand, two hand, all that, right? Are we going in and out in direction? How deep? What's like height is different than depth, right? Like what angles do we have? Rotation. Are we using our weight to stay in balance or our strength, right? Like, and what speed? And then like within movement, are we stationary, not taking steps, or taking steps? Traveling forward or traveling backward, right? Rotating on an axis that's in between us or that's on one of the people, right? Like traveling and rotating at the same time. I'm not even sure if that's possible, but like we've kind of thought like of an example where we're like, yeah, I think that's it, right? And then like any move you do, like any point practicing it, and dips like is another. So these are all like things we can practice with these elements, right? And like, so this is kind of what I want people to do in that second half of class, but with their own things, with frame or with whatever they want to break down, and break it down into elements that allow them to try to master it. Like even this, I would bet like if, we geek out on it long enough, we'll be like, oh shit, there's this aspect of it that we didn't think of.
Cool.
So
Okay.
does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm starting to now actually think of examples I would bring up in that class. So
Yeah.
great.
So this is part 2 class, right? This is what I thought we were going to spend the majority of time in our class working on with the students. But we ended up working more on what I consider part 1 is like adjusting your language, like, and then seeing how that adjusts, like how that can adjust other things. So saying, like looking at like, okay, this thing is wrong or this thing is bad, like that's a good step, is like look for things like that, like don't pull up when you're in a Texas Tommy, right? um and then going, okay, well, what if someone pulls up, how do we make that amazing, right? Like by resisting and pushing down, just like if they were to push on us anywhere else in a dance, like we could resist that pressure rather than let our arm go up and like dislocate, right? Um, and that's what allowed me to do, as far as I know, the first aerial in Texas Tommy was because I had that upward connection to to create connection with my partner as they unraveled, right? Um, so there's things like that we're looking at where it's not breaking down something in this level of detail, but it's solving a problem by adjusting our language and looking at like how do we make that amazing. And that's part 1. I feel like that's the easier one of the two, right? Like um and yeah. So I thoughts on a structure to deliver that.
I
Like,
mean, I think it I think the fact that you spent most of your time in this last section
mhm.
just highlights the fact that that's where you need to go. Like just go right to it and let that be the focus.
Say that again.
So the fact that you kind of missed your progression
Hmm.
in that ordering and you went straight to the last 30 minutes thing, I think that just tells you that's where to spend time.
Yeah, and the other thing I would say though is I like that. I do agree, like, because that gets them all working versus us in a big group, like one or two people are like thinking, but like everybody can listen and not actively think.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that. The thing I think that needs to change is at the beginning, I think we got to give them the thing to solve.
I mean, yeah, you
Right.
need at least one example so they understand the context for the issue,
Yeah,
for
because
the tool.
yeah, that definitely was a part of the like, oops, like this didn't work, was letting them pick their own own thing to work on at first.
Can you so like in this outline like for the team, can
Mhm.
you highlight some possible right answers that we're like looking for um when we're looking for people to bring out problems and what are potential like not the right context answers?
Yeah, like that.
Counterbalance is one, right?
Yeah, right answers for like what techniques do we want to work on?
Right, like right answers for this question, right? Like what problems apply because clearly some problems are not applicable to this tool.
Right. Yeah, I think. like if I want to split it up into two questions. Let's talk about like the question around like, okay, what technique do we want to work on that like we want to rework,
Hmm.
right? Like so that it works with everyone. Tone, frame, um, uh, when we talk about musicality, AABA, uh, I imagine something on axis about the axis on its own, right? Like
Yep.
being on your axis versus being off axis.
Yep.
Um, uh,
I think there's a big one that I've encountered that's around um, the default way that people that follows change direction, whether like particularly in a linear
oh,
context, right?
momentum.
Whether they do like a step replace or whether they just step back and like shift, you know, right foot, left foot back into right foot. Like that's been a big piece I've had to spend a lot of time like helping leads understand your follow's doing this, so you have to deal with it this way.
Hmm.
But if your follow does this other thing and they don't know the footwork, then you have to do this, you know? So
Hmm.
like, I don't know, is that footwork? Is that
It might be like it
meaning?
made me think momentum when you said it, because I'm like, are they continuing their momentum? Are they stopping it and redirecting it?
But
Like,
the follow is really, they may not even be behaving. I mean, yeah, maybe it is momentum, but the follow is really thinking about their footwork. Like they're just all focused on their feet. So they're like changing direction too early. So somewhere
yeah,
between timing and momentum.
yeah, it might be. Timing is another great one. Um, right. Uh, Let me write some of these down just so.
Also, the secret to comedy, timing.
Yeah. So tone, tension, uh, counter, balance,
I think I
momentum.
might want to make a list too of all of the things that were terrible about the West Coast Swing One class I took last week.
Woof.
Um, oh, I forget that most of these I actually have written down in my little mind map of all my techniques. I don't know why I'm not looking at that.
Okay, okay.
Uh, Let me see if I can pull that up. World class. Um, Ted, what are your thoughts so far? Questions?
I haven't been doing a lot of teaching of dance, so I think I have a little bit less to add on the how are we going to break down the dance pieces that we're teaching.
Mhm.
But I'm loving just letting this wash over. I just don't have a lot to add on that right now because I'm not in it right now.
Mhm. Gotcha. Um, but
I thought that whiteboard was amazing.
the whiteboard? Oh, the one you
Yeah, the
put
whiteboard.
down with the
Yeah,
counterbalance?
yeah,
Nice.
that was good for me.
Awesome. Nice. Yeah, that I want lots of that to happen in the second half
Did
of
you
this.
make that live in session?
What?
Did you make that live in session?
No, we did it just a few minutes before, and added to it during the session as we realized, oops, position isn't in there. Like, you know, but yeah, we did it an hour before. Let's see. I think this is
That's
uh
cool. But I think in particular,
grounding.
those kinds of things, those um, there's a speed retention trade-off, and
Hmm.
having that made to present to people is like, well, that's a lot. I need to take a picture of it and maybe come back to it later. Um,
Hmm.
versus like some of the trainers that I've been the most impressed with have a bunch of those in their head that they build on the fly with people so that um, you can sort of see it building out
Yeah.
and you can keep up with it and kind of lay it down in your own understanding as it's being built out. Uh, so that's it's kind of like bring people along with your thought process version of it that I
Hmm.
think is really neat. Um, I don't need anything to change for this, but I thought in the spirit of Geek working out, you all would appreciate uh, that I do think about whether I'm building this live or whether I'm pointing at a slide.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. And I see value in both depending on the situation. And that is definitely something to think about for this is which one makes more sense. Um, yeah.
I've found myself thinking as well about what versions of handouts or follow-ups
Hmm.
you're giving to folks, and I think that based on the goals that we talked through last time, that the goal for the follow-up is to sell them into the program and then to reinforce the ideas there. Uh,
Hmm.
is that true? Did I hear that right?
Um, definitely like if they go into any of the like online stuff, it will reinforce, like there's everything to reinforce what they're learning for sure. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
and give them more detail. Obviously, we won't have time to go into a lot of it, right? Like, um, so yeah, definitely that would help. Hmm.
Those are the only thoughts that I had.
Okay, cool. Um, just so you can see some of the things, I haven't actually analyzed these from this perspective yet, but I imagine like a lot of them make sense. Natural leg momentum probably is a perfect one. Um, any of these connection, like side to side connection versus forward backward connection. Um, uh, what's grounding? Like these are all concepts that I would love in that second half. Um, Counterbalance, arm leads versus body leads. Um, yeah. So then, but you asked the question, Ruby, your question originally was give some examples so we can tell if they're answering correctly. Like, so that kind of covers part two. Like, maybe it would be helpful to also do that for part one, or is part one already kind of obvious? Like, follows don't dip yourselves, or oh, what was the really subtle one um that I mentioned talking with Kevin about, Christina? Do you remember? He said,
Yeah, I
"Oh,
remember we
yeah,
had a conversation, but I don't remember
I
what it
got it.
was.
I got it." He said, when you're dancing, you have to show your boundary in order to communicate with your partner, right? And I think for boundary, he was kind of meaning frame, right? And that's a really subtle, like, good, bad, subjective aspect, I think, because like it's I don't know if it's subjective. It's still in this range of what I want people to watch out for because like people can dance and communicate visually, right? So that one isn't objective fact. It was based on his knowledge of how to share information, right? Was like, oh, well, we do it through our frame. Um, So, like, part of this is looking for those moments where we're speaking something that kind of has a subjective side to it, and how do we make it objective? And as soon as I pointed that out to him, he was able to transition and be like, oh, okay. Like, I can't remember exactly what he said, but he basically broke down what he meant by frame in much more detail, which was cool on its own. And didn't use any like you can't do this without this language, which leaves it open for if someone else figures out a way, like, it leaves it open for someone to figure out a way rather than immediately dismiss it. Um, and Ted, you said, I like the idea of boundaries being an important precursor to effective engagement. Makes me think about the ways that consent breaks down for many in dancings of all sorts. Um, Can you say what you mean on that?
Yeah, if people aren't upfront with their boundaries, then how do you find them? By accidentally stepping over them.
Hmm.
And then you get to see how people react to that. Some people react really, really well in a grounded way of like, hey, you just crossed a boundary. Uh, maybe I didn't even know it was there. Thank you for helping me learn about myself. Let's never do that again. And some people, you know, freeze up and go write about it on Facebook, and drama ensues. And so in that range of like grounded, own your boundaries, own what you have communicated and what you haven't, and like uh, have less grounded reactions to that. I think there is still that all of that is only able to happen if you're not talking about those boundaries up front for whatever reason,
Hmm.
including that you don't know they exist, which is an entirely valid reason not to talk about boundaries up front. Like, but that's what I'm saying. And like I spent some time thinking today about that, how much physical engagement we have in the realm of grappling, since I've been studying some jujitsu, to partner dance, to engaging sexually with people, and how boundaries are important in all of those, and like both explicit and tacit expectations. Like, whose job is it to make sure that nobody gets hurt?
Hmm.
What if you're wrestling with a child? Whose job is it to make sure nobody gets hurt?
Hmm.
In what if you're wrestling with a peer? Whose job is it to make sure? What if you're dancing with an equal? Whose job is it? What if you're dancing with someone who you don't perceive as an equal? Whose job is it?
I can see even just boundaries being like its own fundamental, right? Like that would be a good one to bring up, right?
Yeah.
Ruby, you're muted.
Sorry, I was saying it is a fundamental, and it's almost never spoken about until it becomes emotional.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I like it as a pretty neutral way to talk about boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
If you talk about frame as boundaries, if you talk about personal space uh, in a dance context, then you can get your reps in without it being charged by all the other ways that it might be.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Nice.
I have a question. I don't know if this fits in here, so feel free to divert me if it doesn't. Um, I've been thinking about one of the default corrections I've made in classes like 1,000 times, and it's the drawbridges, it's the drawbridge arm situation where like everyone's arm tone comes up.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I've spent a lot of time trying to short circuit that by just like running over to a couple and being like, relax your arms, bridge cables,
Sure.
and like we demonstrate it, we do all the exercises, but people still instinctively bring tone into the conversation. And I started to think about what if you what if you took a bunch of dancers and you didn't give them a directive about how to have tone in their arms, but you did give them a problem to solve. Like, get your partner to step on time with you with like matching, like mirrored footwork, you know?
Hmm.
How could you convey that as clearly as possible and like let people discover for themselves what level of tone and like boundary making they make in their body to get that done? Like, would they learn it faster if you spent an hour on that instead of spending 4 weeks reminding people, relax your arms, relax your arms? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. 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 I think my theory is definitely like if you spend an hour on any particular topic and really digging into it, they're much more likely to learn it than the little like reminders that we give. I almost like I'm like if you can't have someone actually spend time working on something, I don't think even mention it personally. Like if they aren't gonna actually spend some time, like why mention it? I think it's our like desire to like make sure they know everything, but like right. Like,
Yeah, but if they're not actually integrating it into the practice and having it in like in the windshield, it's
yeah,
just
it's
yeah,
just what's the word? Window dressing. It's just like um
Fluff,
what? Fluff
fluff.
or yeah, like
fluff.
yeah.
Yeah, it's just wasting. It's also like giving people too much information. Like they're trying to work on this other thing, and
Yep.
Yeah,
you know it's not working because their tone sucks, but they're
Hmm.
so focused on the other thing that they don't understand that tone is the reason why the thing works.
Hmm. Yeah.
that's
Um,
real. Yeah, that people are distracted by trying to work on. I mean, this is why we talk about fundamentals so often, that people are distracted by from working on the cool move that they want to do because their fundamentals suck, and it takes a significant amount of experience with the thing, whether it's dance or something else, before they realize that it's their foundations that are off.
Yeah.
yeah. Um, yeah, Christina.
I I am stuck on the beginning of the class, and I still feel like we are. I'm trying to decide how to say
And
it.
I before as think about that for a sec because I want to recognize it is 4:15. So if anybody needs to head out, like no problem. Uh,
I actually have to go. But I I really like the idea of going from subjective to objective language,
mhm.
but to me that still hasn't been addressed in the introduction. And I know we've jumped to part two, reaction ready,
Yeah.
but I feel like we're fundamentally missing the beginning,
Hmm.
um, where there is no wrong technique. There's
Yeah.
just an inability to utilize it.
Yeah, or there's technique that's not effective for certain things, right? Like right, like um
Well, I think so. I think that's a little bit where I'm stuck because my understanding of the the premise of the class is that you can make everything work if you understand it well enough to be able to come at it in a different way.
um I would say slightly different. I would say you can make every dance amazing. Um like
So
some
how
things,
are those different?
huh?
How
Well,
are they different?
make something work might mean like in your mind, I am trying to do, let's exaggerate it, this crazy aerial, right?
Uh,
And um
You
like
may not be able to achieve the aerial without the right technique, but you can do something other than that that will still be nice, that will still
right.
be musical, that will still be connected.
Right, exactly. Like I might not have the technique for it. I might not have the strength for it, right? Like my partner might be 6 times my size. And so my in my mind, they're gonna be, 20 feet in the air, but realistically, objectively, I don't have the strength or the technique to do that. So that's why I say like when you say work, like some people think like the exact thing I'm trying to do. Um, and this is more about opening it up to sometimes you will be able to do the thing you wanted to do. As a extreme example, like if someone has no tone, like like they technically do connect to their body eventually, right? Their arm, once fully outstretched, does connect to their body. And so you can physically move their body with a connection, even if they don't have tone, right? Even if they're noodle arm. So
Right. You're just not
sometimes
going to
you,
get the effect you want.
right, sometimes you can have that, but now say like, okay, but I wanted to do that, you know, right now in this moment, and I still have to back up 2 steps to get that connection. Like, Like, yeah, okay, you're not going to get the thing you wanted right now. You need to do something else to get it. Does that kind of make sense, Christina? Are you frozen? I think she's
She seems frozen to me.
right. Yeah.
Having a very serious thinking moment.
Right. Um,
The pipes are clogged on the interwebs today.
yeah. Uh,
Well, I'm gonna take the opportunity to excuse myself
okay.
as well. Thanks for the time. This was
Yeah.
great. I I travel starting on Saturday,
Okay.
so unclear whether I'll be able to attend from Europe.
Okay. Um,
Um,
if you want to do a one-on-one, if you can't do the
oh,
time,
great. That's an
want to just do
idea.
a one-on-one, I'd love that.
I love that plan. I'm not taking a computer with me, so I'll think about meaningful ways that I can participate and think about this on small screens.
Okay. Sounds good.
Much love.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right. I've got like another 7 minutes or so. Uh,
Okay, cool. I wanted to just throw some things at you that came out for me in this first West Coast swing class
yeah.
because it was really interesting and illuminating. And, I'm thinking about like, what if I were to go to this studio and say, like, hey, you guys teach great West Coast swing classes, but the techniques, like, you're locking yourselves into, being able to connect with a limited number of dancers. And, here's what's going on.
Yeah.
And like, I've been thinking about, I was trying to practice my new 6 count patterns as a lead. And, it was like, it was very uninspired.
Hmm.
But I have a wealth of like fake West Coast swing moves, which I'm not counting, I'm not thinking them in the context of a choreography I learned in class, but it's side passes, it's turns, it's all the things that you see in West Coast swing. And I started to think about like, why, why do they teach this pattern where you do step, step, triple step? And
Hmm.
and what was even more wild is that the instructor who taught it taught everybody to march around, right? So we're going, right?
Yeah.
So the non-dancers, the very new people, don't have any understanding that they're split weight almost the whole time. They're
Mhm.
not on a foot. It's very like they one friend who I brought was never on the right foot coming out of the like
Mhm.
out of the direction change.
Yeah.
When the teacher asked me to dance later in the night, he was such a smooth and nice dancer. And he didn't do any of that marching bullshit that he taught. And I was
Uh-huh.
like, why did you teach that? Why didn't you teach at least a slightly moving triple or like, a triple with like a little bit of a weight shift,
Uh-huh.
like why didn't you give them that? And then he also completely glossed over any concept of momentum or stretch or directionality. So there
Hmm.
was just no connection with the partners at all.
Yeah.
And I was just like, man, what if you just taught West Coast swing without focusing on the footwork first? And you just were like, hey, this is a momentum based dance. This is really what it's all about. Because when you watch the pros, they're not like,
Do
you
you
know,
know, that's one of my main clients does, Miles and Tessa.
really?
They're actually doing a 15-minute challenge. They just started. It's free. I highly recommend it. And they break down how they teach in 15 minutes someone to do West Coast swing, no footwork.
Oh,
Right?
that's so
Like,
cool.
yeah,
When you watch a lot of pros, they don't even step at all. They
right?
just they just step off the line, then they do a weight shift. They don't fucking do any footwork.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. It's funny that we're so stuck in footwork as like the first thing that we teach as pretty much any dance, right? Like that's the standard.
Yeah.
Like,
I taught my boyfriend to lead like a whip or like a send out, like a whatever like the half of a Lindy Hop swing out is, but then you send the follow back out. instead of doing the full rotation. I taught him how to lead that without any footwork, and he was so smooth. And I was just like, this is the technology.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That there were a lot of things that came up in that class that I actually want to write down, because there's also other stuff about like introducing yourself as the instructor, introducing a concept, like introducing like what is this dance, giving a context for what the dance is.
Mm-hmm.
And then little catchphrases I hear instructors say when they're failing, like, this is really hard. Like,
Mm.
when I hear an instructor say that, I know that they're failing to convey the message, and that's actually on them.
Yeah. 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 Mm. Yeah.
So those were just kind of my like immediate reflections on taking that class. And what was super cool is that like I did the like you pay for it 4 week series,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's a 30-minute West Coast swing drop in and a 30-minute hustle drop in before the social.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the older instructors taught the 30-minute West Coast swing drop in. She taught more content in 30 minutes to a bunch of noobs
Mm-hmm.
than the guy who taught the 1 hour intro class.
Mm.
And so there's this other piece of like older instructors who've been in the dance for a long time really have their shit dialed in.
Right.
So
Yeah.
like if you want to learn to be like if you want to learn some of those subtle tricks, like go to a class taught by an older instructor. They've cleared away a lot of the fluff.
Right. I mean, that is like also my theories, right, that I'm doing. Like I see them implemented by top instructors that have been around traveling the world teaching. But usually it's like they have one or two classes like it, right? Like that's their like go-to big thing is like, oh, here, let me break this down and really get you to understand it type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but for some reason, as dancers, I mean, I get like when you're teaching a weekly class, there's this pressure to like entertain and to give moves and stuff like that. And there's just, it hasn't been broken down on how do we take this stuff and make it work for a weekly class that was, designed for a workshop, which I
Yeah.
do think is possible, but does have to be changed a little bit. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that is a conversation that you could maybe bookmark for a geek out, is like how do you change this content for a weekly progressive series versus how you address a group of people you're only going to have for 1 or 2 hours over the course of a weekend.
yeah, yeah, I like that. Yeah. Okay, I gotta get going. I sent you a link to that the 15-minute intro lesson challenge for West Coast Swing, teaching West
Oh,
Coast Swing.
okay,
So
cool.
yeah, check that out. It's in your
No.
Facebook. Um, thank you.
All right.
Appreciate you. Talk to you later.
Bye.